Hey gorgeous, I'm Shamika Sanders, and with me are Kiara Kelly and today's special guest host, Allison McGavina, the VP of Lifestyle and Women on Hello Beautiful and MadameNoire.com. Let's get into another fantastic episode of Listen to Black Women. The Me Too movement has gained a lot of momentum, taking down some powerful people in the process.
Yeah, stories from celebs like Angelina Jolie and Gwyneth Paltrow have shined light on the abuses in the entertainment industry, but countless everyday women of color are suffering the same way, but in silence.
Yeah, and 2017 ignited widespread attention to the Me Too movement, with Tarana Burke, a black woman, actually being the first person to start Me Too 10 years before in order to create a safe space for victims of sexual assault.
And get this, the first sexual harassment lawsuits were filed by black women back in the 70s. Google Eleanor Holmes Norton, Paulette Barnes, and Carmita Wood later. Although the bravery of these women resulted in changes to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the people who benefited most were and still are white.
Now, while these and other important achievements of black women often go unacknowledged, it's hard not to think our voices are being intentionally ignored. So ladies, that brings us to the question of the week. Do we want Me Too for us too? Let's hit the web to see what people have to say for this week's social media roundup. She Still tweeted, apparently, the Me Too and Women's March stuff only applies to white women. Hashtag Me Too doesn't include me. Hashtag fake females.
That's a good point at She Still Tweets. Allie, as a black woman, do you feel like Me Too excludes you?
You know, whether intentionally or unintentionally, it does feel that way. I mean, think about it. This past December, 98% of black women in Alabama flexed their voting muscles to keep an accused sexual predator out of the Senate. It might be time for folks to put some respect, shout out to Birdman, on our voices.
Now, this tweet from Shakari S. Briggs gives us something to think about. If the hashtag Mute R. Kelly campaign is about hashtag It's Time's Up for separating the music and the artist, will the same actions be taken for Chris Brown, Nas, etc.? So does being a fan make it hard to separate an artist from their craft and their bad behavior? What do you think?
Yeah, it's clear that fans are really struggling with this, and I think Cosby is a prime example because we've had to watch one of our beloved black TV dads literally fall from the high pedestal that we put them on.
It's Bruja, bitch. Okay, that's
Great
I love
name.
that name. Tweeted, I understand the need to and desire to protect black men because the racist society we live in that vilifies them for merely existing, but they're sexually abusing black women. Amazing point. Why do black women censor our pain, especially when inflicted by our own?
You know, it's really complicated. If you look at slavery, it justified a lot of those terrible treatments toward black women. And, you know, there are just so many stereotypes about our hypersexuality. And then you add in violence, sexual violence against black men and women. And I think a lot of women really stepped up to try to protect black men, especially in the era of Jim Crow, right? And then I feel like good or bad, those protections are still existing.
I think because a lot of times victims' accounts of sexual assault are ignored or shamed due to patriarchy, religion. Just to touch on the religion point a little bit, because we're taught as girls to have our bodies presented as this whole perfect thing. You know, if you're molested or raped, it kind of takes away from that purity you're supposed to have as a girl, even if it's from no fault of your own. And religion is such a big thing in black communities, and I think there's just so many factors that can contribute to us just carrying that silent shame for decades.
Yeah. You mentioned the black community, and I think that as young black girls, we're taught to not put ourselves in certain positions. So we don't actually, you know, put the onus on the guys when they commit these crimes. Like for R. Kelly, it's so hard, I think, for the black community to hold him responsible because it's not rape in the traditional sense of like physical rape, like I forced you down to have sex with you, versus these girls are doing it at their own will. You just fast, you just fresh. Those are like terms I remember hearing.
And then it ends up being that, you know, you're a victim 2 times over. You're a victim of the assault, but you're also a victim of just the shame that you carry inside and the shame you could face from your loved ones. It's so tragic.
You guys weighed in on last week's polls and they made their opinions heard loud and clear. And so we asked the audience, have you ever been sexually abused, with 48% of the people taking the poll saying yes and 52% saying no. We also asked, for the women who have been sexually abused, did you report it? And 49% said no. Only 5% said yes, they did report it. It's unfortunate to hear that almost half of our audience has been sexually abused through their lifetime, even though it's not shocking, but it's still scary. We asked, why do you think many black women stay silent and do not report sexual abuse? With 47% saying the fear of not being believed keeps them from reporting. 26% don't want to upset home dynamics, and 11% don't come out because of shame. I thought the upset home dynamics point was interesting because that almost shows that a lot of the sexual assault is happening with family members.
Yeah, and there are just so many things to consider in why they're not coming forward, so many things to consider and think about that are just burdens that are on these women's shoulders. It's so heartbreaking.
Yeah, it upsets me when people get into this, well, why didn't you come out faster or sooner? Because you're putting a time limit on these victims' pain. It takes a lot to get to a point of even being able to speak about it. You know, some people go right away and some people take years.
We asked, do you think the Black community is more silent on the issue of sexual abuse more than other communities, with 63% saying yes. Do you guys feel like Black community stays mum on a lot of things?
Yeah. I even think about the cops. Black people don't like to call the cops.
Yeah, I was just going to say the relationship with the justice system is so broken, and we know that a lot of times that could lead to death, and so there's those complicated dynamics of maybe, you know, still loving or respecting or having an emotional connection to your abuser, even though they did this horrible thing to you. You don't want them to die.
Why do you think we are less likely to believe Black female victims? 48% said because society places less value on Black women, and 25% because they wait too long to report, and 16% said because Black women are perceived as hypersexuals.
I just want to give a collective hug to all of us, because it just breaks my heart how Black women around the world are just consistently the most disrespected people. Malcolm said it best, the most disrespected people in the world. It's so sad.
So we asked to kind of solve for this going forward, right? Because clearly we've been suffering with this for generations. But we asked, what's the best way to protect Black female victims after they speak out? With 62% of our pollees saying holding abusers accountable for their actions, and 16% saying ending the stigma around being a victim. I think ending the stigma is amazing, and I think that's why Me Too blew up how it did, because you were seeing so many people that you would never think were assaulted saying, I'm actually one of the survivors.
Do you think there's a face associated with sexual assault?
I actually think, yes, that people think that only certain people are victims, or you think that a victim has to be somebody who you're going to feel sorry for. So if you're looking at someone, you know, look at Daniel Holtzclaw, who was abusing women who were sex workers and women who were strippers. You assume that those women must have brought it on themselves. And also what we have to remember is that it's not just women who are victims of sexual assault and abuse as well. In fact, you know, we had actor Terry Crews come in, and he gave a really passionate and honest interview about his 2017 experience with sexual assault. He stopped by our studios and he gave a great interview with our girl Brandy Victoria.
I'll never forget, I was on a set of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and we were shooting, and you know, the whole Weinstein, Ronan Farrow had wrote the story, and it really just started coming down. And I was like, oh my God, this happened to these women. And what was happening in my social media was people were saying, oh, they're just gold diggers. They just want a payday. They're opportunists. And I was like, wait a minute, it's happened to me. This happened to me. And listen, when I say PTSD, it was wild, because I was literally trying to work and I was shaking.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, man, you know what? This is crazy. I gotta just lend some support.
Shout out to Terry Crews, because it's so rare for a man, especially a Black man, to show that level of vulnerability.
Ladies, what's your biggest takeaway from the conversation we just had?
Believe Black women, believe Black women, believe Black women.
Say it again.
Believe Black women. Always, I have nothing else.
And that's part of the reason why it's so important to have shows like Listen to Black Women and Hello Beautiful and MadameNoire, so that we really can speak about these things. And I think the other thing for me is really just seeing all these numbers, hearing all these statistics, is just we need to arm women with the ability to say no, because sometimes there are situations where you don't even know how to say no. If you went upstairs, if you were making out with somebody and you change your mind, so many women don't know how to say no, and that you have the right to say no, and that no means no.
Also, I think we have to really take a magnifying glass to the cycle of abuse, because abusers are created by craziness, but also by other abusers. So when you look at the R. Kellys of the world, the Chris Browns of the world, even women out there who go through sexual abuse and don't get the help, and then the cycle continues to perpetuate itself. Huge thank yous to Hello Beautiful's Kiara Kelly and our special guest, Allison McGevna. And to all you viewers, make sure you visit hellobeautiful.com and MadameNoire.com right away to participate in next week's poll. If you love this week's conversation, make sure to hit share and repost this video for your friends. And never forget, you won't go wrong when you listen to Black women.